Please also join me in welcoming U.S. congressional candidate and veteran Shane Hazel.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here today. What a great group of people. I was so excited this morning that I woke up just before 5 o'clock after being up till 1 because we have people from out of town in our house. Put on my clothes in the dark of the night, slipped on my shoes, let the dog out. I was halfway through my first sip of coffee when my alarm actually went off. And I am so excited to find people who are like-minded here at the GRA, and I can't thank you enough for having me. As I stand before you this morning, my home in Forsyth County is full of friends and family that I haven't seen in years from out of state, and they are there to celebrate my little girl's 3rd birthday. And I am here with you today on my little girl's 3rd birthday because I know well the war we are in and that freedom demands sacrifice. It is the unconditional love that I have for her, my little boys, and my wife that I stand before you and the Almighty here this day. The idea of a constitutional republic where representatives are accountable to their people is still a unique principle in this world, and we have lost sight of that as Americans. We have been told by progressives in both parties that the Constitution is not adequate to govern an advanced society, that it is a living, breathing document, which I will take them to task for. There's only freedom and tyranny in this world. Per Article 6, Section 3 of the Constitution, all elected officials, from your local sheriff to the president and everybody in the military, swears an oath to the Constitution. The oath I took before God and my brothers in arms was the embodiment of the American idea of freedom and justice for all and the sacrifice that liberty demands. Progressives from both sides have lied, they have usurped and dishonored that sacrifice, that ultimate sacrifice many have paid for this constitutional republic. Individual freedom, prosperity, and the Constitution have been consigned, perverted, all by progressives, which has yielded a socialist dogma where we are all equal, but some are more equal than others. We were all meant to be exceptional, and that's what made this country exceptional. As a United States Marine, I have seen the enemy on the battlefield, and I can tell you that there is no nation or people on this earth that are dangerous to your freedoms and liberty as the 545 members of our own federal government. We live in an extraordinary time in this history. We live in a time where American people are looking past parties for the first time in 200 years. We are all beginning to see government for what it has become in the hands of progressives from both parties. There is a vast government complex that is devouring everything in sight to sustain itself. The first half of every year, Americans are forced to work for their government. The U.S. government spends $120,000 a second. That is $10 billion a day with a B. We are almost $20 trillion in debt, and we have $200 trillion in unfunded liability. A nation has never survived that. Federal regulation and policies has invaded everything we do from the time we wake up in the morning till the time we go back to bed. We have submitted to permitting and licensing to our inalienable rights in the name of safety to protect us from our inalienable rights. Americans have conflated comfort with freedom. At no time or place in history have people been more comfortable and had so little freedom. As of late, Americans have gone about their lives acquiring the styles of life that the most of the human race can't even imagine. And yet, every single day since the beginning of this great experiment in Republican government, progressive forces have worked under cover in the secrecy of darkness to undermine the great American experiment. And now they have been so emboldened that they work proudly in broad daylight. In Federalist Paper number 45, the father of the Constitution, James Madison, says that the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. Meanwhile, our centralized power in the government has grown without boundaries, antithetical to the constitutional republic for which we live in. Government is force. And when it turned from looking outward and began to look inward against its own charter, Americans became the object from which they sought to draw that unlimited power. Today, there are more weapons pointed at Americans by their own government than any time in history, not for violent transgressions against their fellow man, but for exercising their inalienable rights, free speech, redress, faith, the use of their own private property, and free trade. The U.S. has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and as most Americans violate 7 laws a day, which means we have all been made criminals. If laws made America safe, we'd be the safest nation on this planet. We know that not to be true. We are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy, for a democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where no one is safe. You would think by now progressives would have learned their lessons. Communist and socialist governments have killed 200 million on the conservative side of their own countrymen in the last century alone. And it tells me everything I need to know about progressives when they slander the likes of James Madison, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, while erasing real heroes like Booker T. Washington, Crispus Attucks, Mercy Otis Warren, and Abigail Adams. Those brave and daring men and women from every walk of life founded this great nation. In the comfort, we have also lost sight of the principle of peace. Peace was a principle our framers held dear. They knew that they could not prosper while their sons and daughters were employed in war, and yet America has been at war for 17 years without end. My brothers in arms have lost parts of their soul, their brothers in arms, their family, which they will never regain. And that is why I stand before you this day. I stand before you to proudly enter the race and officially announce my candidacy for U.S. Congress in the Georgia 7th District. Thank you. We the people must stand and serve and sacrifice, because freedom demands sacrifice, because leadership matters, because integrity matters, and most of all, freedom matters. Make no mistake, we are not here to give the establishment just a run for their money, nor are we here just to change policy. We are here to change the course of history. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America.